I do apologize. I had to do a bit off camera. Um, I had the USB-C cable going into a USB 2 connection on my oscope. My oscope happened to go into standby, and I wasn't paying attention, so my phone thoroughly discharged the phone's battery and turned off mid what I was recording. So I had to plug the charge cable into an actual AC/DC converter and put it into a voltage source. Wait for my battery to charge up a little bit. But while I was waiting for that, what I did is I went ahead, that white wire that was disconnected here, I trimmed back that wire a bit, exposing the center copper. I tinned that copper and then fed it through the hole on the corresponding side down here and just went ahead and soldered it back. So that wire is now reattached. I'm not seeing any other wires that are currently broken. And then I take that back. I've got one more right here that is no longer attached. That is going to feed to these rails over here, which would be those LEDs, which might explain why some of those lights were not illuminating. Alright, so we're going to have to do the same process on this. Alright, so believe it or not, let's see, that's the 1, 2, that's the third wire down through hole. So that's going to Q2, corresponding to Q2 on this side. So what I'm going to do is I assume that this is silver solder, not lead solder. So I'm going to put a little bit of lead solder down on it. Sometimes you actually have to add solder to get rid of solder. I'm going to use some of my tin lead-based solder, or lead tin. Put a little bit on my tip. Put a little bit down here on that one spot. Alright, then I should be able to use my soldering wick and soak up the solder there. Make this a little bit easier on myself. I cut a piece of this off first. So trying to handle the entire thing, maybe just hold it in place with some tweezers. You can physically now see the wires I've broken, pulled them out, cleaned them off. Soldering tip. Through holes. Can't quite see that through hole. It's possible I did not remove enough solder. Maybe some leftover flux in there. Yeah, I can see some light coming through here now. I'll try to clean it out a little bit more. So the good thing is that any solder is located. Once it melts, it's going to travel to the source of where the heat's at. So as long as I got this close, it should wick some of it up. I'll try not to burn myself. Okay. That's better. That opening has unclogged. I should now be able to trim back that wire a bit that's broke here. tin it up and feed it through. Of course, I'm not doing this the right way. Pretty sure there's going to be somebody, if anybody ever sees this video, say something to that extent in the comments. That's fine. Not going to bother me. Where's my soldering test at? I don't want those to thread apart too much. You keep them wound. A little bit of this paste flux on there, and they're coming apart again. Yeah. Hate getting this nasty stuff on my fingers. If it can corrode electronic equipment long term, it's probably not good to get on the skin. That's nice and tinned up. And another wire broke loose. Well, like I said, probably bound to happen. This is an old toy. It's definitely making a, I thought was going to be a relatively easy repair turn into a much longer one. Put this up for a minute. All right. And that one's attached. Now I gotta redo this same process for this next wire that just came loose. Try not to tug on other wires and breaking them. And it's tinned. Cut the tip off a little bit. It's probably a little too wide to get through that hole. That should be good. I gotta clean up the other side. Where's my used piece of solder braid? There it goes. Now I've got to feed that through here, but I got to clean that up first. I'll repeat the same process again. Add some solder to take away some solder. There's an opening. So feed this wire through. There we go. And let's reattach it. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit closer. Maybe this will make it easier to see. So what I did is I tinned up this wire, cleaned all the solder there, and fed that wire through. I'm going to clean up all this burnt flux. And like I said, this isn't no clean flux. I don't have any on me currently. You have to clean it up, otherwise it's going to eat away the enamel on this board and things surrounding it long term. But hopefully no more wires come detached. So I'm going to have to very carefully reattach everything. And then I'll clean this back up. Start by putting the speaker back in its spot. Oop, that's not bad. If I feed it in this way first. There we go. Super glue wasn't finished drying yet. I really don't feel like... Oh, let me turn this back on. The wires on those speakers, it looks like a cold solder joint. You can tell what a cold solder joint is when you solder. It should look nice and like a mirror finish when you're done. This might be because of the super glue I put down, but down here on the speaker, it's got a dull looking surface to it, which means that it's probably not hot enough when those wires were attached. Ooh. So I'm going to put fresh solder down on it and reattach that speaker wire. A cold solder joint will not last long term. They do have a tendency to impede the flow of electrons from one component to the next, tear down or break down. See the same thing on the wires over here, which is bothering me. So I'm going to just put some fresh solder down to where they're located. And hopefully not mess anything up. Whoa. Okay, so how am I going to reattach this board? As I did melt the plastics, get it out. Anyway, it's popped in relatively nicely. Use the same super glue. See if I can't get it to here and not move around. Put a bit down here. Put it on this post. And that should keep it held in place. Okay. So I think what we can do for now is I'm going to clean this off camera, clean it up a bit with a little bit of IPA. And then we can take a look at the terminals that we pulled out for the batteries, see how they look. All right. So it looks like the vinegar's, for the most part, done its job. Eating away at the corrosion on here. Need to get these parts dried off, and I'm going to clean them off with a little bit of IPA afterwards. And the corrosion wasn't terribly bad. I remember my getting toys when I was young that my parents grew up on. Old electronic devices where batteries had set in them for decades. And when I was little as a kid, trying to get them to work, although I didn't know what I was doing at the time, I was picking off the bits of battery acid that had corroded or leaked out of the batteries and gotten off the terminals to try to get those old kids' toys working. And I was able to do so with some success. Really what got me into electronics was the fact that my mother was a big supporter of me tearing things apart as a kid and putting them back together. She saw that, really enjoyed that. And so I would have Legos or an erector set or like little sciencey kits and stuff like that to just play around on and do things. I think I made my first radio with an electronic set she gave me when I was probably around 10, maybe 11 years old. Just going through a book and reading how to connect all the resistors and stuff to it to build a radio, a little AM radio, which has served me real well because it's definitely helped me out with the job I have as an adult. What I'm looking for is a wire brush, and I don't have a wire brush in here. My work desk is not the best. I'll take a photo of it and load it up in this video. It's a small space, but I got everything I need on it to work with. But I don't keep everything that I have just at my work desk. So let's go and take a wire brush to this to kind of clean them up a little bit more. But they're fairly clean as is. So I think I'm just going to take a little bit of IPA and wash them off with IPA in case there's any vinegar left. Get rid of that. Allow me a little bit of time to... what did I do with my paintbrush? Oh, I left it in vinegar. I'll clean that off. Refocus this a little bit. Make sure that I'm not leaving vinegar behind on this. It will just keep eating away at the metals, metal. Especially if these are a copper metal coated in with a sacrificial layer of another metal. Which is typically how these things are made. Usually this is a copper plate that's been coated in through electrolysis or something in another metal. It acts as a sacrifice, so that outer layer eats away before the copper is completely damaged. Although this is a kid's toy, you know, what I know, maybe that's not made the same way for this kid's toy. But okay. Now we need to get these back into here. I'll clean this up a bit. Probably should have done that prior to back up my IPA. So I'm using a little bit of vinegar in here as well. I can hear it fizzing up and eating away that battery acid. Corrosion that was left over. Dilute that vinegar wash with an IPA wash. And now go in with this paper towel and just try to mop things up. The bet this came through the other side a little bit, which it has. That's fine. You can dry that off. Alright. And we can feed these back down into there. Let's see. That's got a negative lead. I know it's got to fit down this way, so it's not that one. It's going to be this one right here. Where did I put my screwdriver? Here it goes. Alright. So there goes a positive terminal. That's one that had a lot of corrosion on it. Fit that back down into its spot. Okay, that was the first negative lead. Zoom out a bit. Get that down in there. And, yep, negative and positive on this side. We'll put that back down to the spot. You kind of hear them snapping in place. So hopefully I haven't done more damage, but it looks like they're all in there. So what I'll do is I'll reattach these wires and go ahead and bend these over because they're not going to come out again, even if I've broken some other wires somewhere. I'll go ahead and bend these back a bit. Same thing with here. Giving a small tug on them just in case if they weren't all the way in place before I bend them over. And I am going to reattach those wires. Alright, so I got to reattach this positive lead to here, the negative lead to there. I'm going to add a little bit of paste flux onto that to help out reattaching them. Again, I have to use some alcohol. There's something in the way of the camera. What is that? Oh! Here, let me move this out of the way. Hopefully my camera doesn't fall. You saw how I have my phone's camera set up on what I'm using. You'd probably laugh a little bit. Because I'm really not very organized. It's by no means a professional studio setup. But, okay, everything appears to be in place. I'm going to pop some batteries in here and just see what happens. Is that switching off position? Yep. Something went down. No sound though. Oh, just as I was thinking. This thing doesn't ever really fully turn off. There goes the sound. Speaker's working. Okay. So the only thing left to repair on here is the motor itself, where this axle's come out of socket. And if I was going to save battery life, what I would do is I'd actually turn this switch into an on-off switch versus it just killing the sound to this thing. Of course, with it being a noise-making device anyways, you know, sometimes you just gotta think as a parent. And if the batteries die sooner, sometimes that's a good thing. Stuff to ponder over. Let's go ahead and take this motor apart. Gotta remember the positive lead and negative lead where they go. Disconnect that. Alright. a little bit. So I'm going to take this motor out. Appears to just be attached via one screw here. Now that screw's out. It's been released. So yeah. I'll zoom out a little bit. This housing to this motor looks like it's just glued together. So you can see that this is the gear that should spin the wheels. And as I feed this axle through, I can tell it's not connecting with that axle itself till I get to one specific point, and that's this point right here. Let me zoom in. So at some point in time, teeth on this were probably stripped out from this gear. Which is why it no longer turns the wheels. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So let's take this apart for a second. We got one clip here. How's this clipped in? Looks like, oh, there's a screw back here. Okay. There's a little screw on this side. Zoom back out. Alright, so this should come loose now. Alright. So this is the main shaft on this DC motor. I'm going to clean, to an extent, the dirt off of this thing. It's just going to get dirty again once my kids go outside with it, play with it. And what I'm going to do is where this gear met up with the axle at this point, I'll super glue this bit back. I'll put a little bit of lubrication back onto these gears and put it all back together. I'm going to save you watching me clean this thing and go ahead and stop the video for a little bit to get it slightly cleaned up. And then once I get closer to reassembly, I'll start the video back up.